Working correctly for us? That's good there, Christy. Yep, unreal. Thank you very much. Look, thank you for joining us tonight for our Year 12 and Accelerated Students and Families webinar. It's all about the HSC. And of course, we thought last year's HSC was going to be a HSC like no other. But of course, we're repeating that feat here in 2021. But I guess the good news around that is we've been through this before, so we've got a bit of experience around how to manage HSC exams during COVID times. Sorry. So today, firstly, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land. I'm actually broadcasting here from the Central Coast. So I'm down here on Darkinjung land, and I know that many of you will be coming, joining this webinar there on the what we call country. So welcome, wherever it is that you may be joining us from tonight. Look, of course, already there's been a few changes, and I should start by saying to everybody, please don't spend the time sitting there writing down copious notes. We'll be making this PowerPoint available, and we actually have a student handbook which is far more detailed than the information that we're going to go through tonight. And that student handbook outlines absolutely everything that you need to know. The next little caveat I'll put around it is that when you read through that handbook, your head might be spinning by the end of it as you try to work out exactly all the different things that you need to do. And that's what we're trying to summarize a little bit tonight, but we're trying to simplify it for you and keep it nice and easy. So you understand these are the things that are happening and these are the things that I need to do. And the handbook's going to provide you with the detail on what it's going to look like. The very simple version around this as well, even simpler, is if you're not sure, all you need to do is contact myself or one of the deputy principals. In the handbook, you're going to have all of our email addresses and you're going to have all of our mobile numbers to ring. So that's for all the students and all the families, any issues or concerns. It's an easy ring through or email, and we'll get back to you to handle any concerns or queries that you might have about the HSC. We're doing everything we can at Toronto High School to preserve and protect the HSC, to give our HSC students the best opportunity to sit those exams. And that's what we're going to go through tonight and run through some of the strategies that we're putting in place to support you. So look, first of all, you know that the HSC has been put back. We're kicking off from the 9th of November. And we're going to have many of those COVID safe practices that you're already aware of that we've been doing for more than 12 months already in the school. Those hygiene processes you're more than familiar with. We'll have the hall set up with all the hygiene products as required, cleaning your desk beforehand, afterwards. We've got the cleaners going through on schedule between exams to clean as well. There's going to be plenty of cleaning that's going to be happening in that space. We've also got requirements around the number of students that we can fit in spaces. So we've determined all of that and worked within the guidelines that have been published to ensure that we're COVID safe in regards to that. We will, however, have to have, for some of our exams, doors open as well around ventilation and aspects of that. So that's a little bit different to what you'd be used to, where we shut the hall up to reduce the amount of noise. But for some of those exams, we will actually need to have the doors open. What we've tried to do in our planning is create islands within the school. So you're all familiar with the hall setup. It's its own little venue. We've got the fence around the hall. And what we're asking you to do for the HSC is arrive through the front gates of the hall. Don't go through the main gates. Don't go through the pedestrian gate. Don't come through the Awabba gates. Come through only the front gate of the hall near the uniform shop. So that gate there, we need everybody to enter there unless you are a special provisions student, and therefore you will be going to E block. So that's the mass block. If you are a special provision student needing to access E block, we ask that you come directly through the car park and up the stairs up into the top of E block there. On your timetable will be exactly where you need to go. Our thinking around that is by having the hall as an island, or E block, where we have that roped off and only allowing access there for our HSC students, that if there is a COVID case in the rest of the school, that hopefully the exams will still be able to continue, depending on advice from health, in our own school hall, because we're able to demonstrate the processes that we have around that. And vice versa as well, and that is if there's a COVID case with the HSC cohort, hopefully we'll be able to demonstrate that that is also able to be isolated just to that cohort and not have an impact on the rest of the school. Everything we do, however, at the end of the day, they won't be our decisions to make. They'll actually be health decisions that we'll need to follow. And behind all of this is a whole range of procedures and documents that we have here at the school that the team on the screen with me have been working on quite deeply. And we've basically, I guess, war gamed out absolutely everything that could possibly happen at the school, and we're ready to go, no matter what that scenario is. Another thing that's going to be a little bit different for Year 12 this year is the mask wearing. You have to wear the mask in the exam, inside, outside. You need to have your mask on at all times. That's part of trying to keep the exams COVID safe. We also have, just like last year, so for those of you who may have been an accelerated student last year, picking up your one subject going through, you would have experienced this already, where we're doing the screening procedures, where we're checking, have you got any flu-like symptoms and so forth, and doing those checks. Bringing Kim Roble up, our first aid officer, as part of that support around there, and essentially being a COVID marshal there for us at the beginning of every single lesson. And as a school, we've already mapped that out with the senior executive already on timetables to be going up and meeting you as part of that screening process and checking off, as well as you're going to have some forms to fill in when you get inside, which signing your life away to say, yes, I'm clear, I'm fine, as are all my family, which I'm going to get to in a moment as well. And look, worst case scenario, well, let's go with, there's a few case scenarios here. Let's say that there is a COVID case either at the school or in the Year 12 cohort in the HSC, and we need to actually shut down the school or shut down the hall and move to an alternative location. We're making an assumption that only some students would have been there for the exam. So if you weren't there involved in the exam and health has said you don't need to self-isolate, and you're fine to then move on to your next exam, we already have planned an alternative venue, which for this year, 2021, different to last year. Last year, we had an arrangement between the Toronto Workers Club for parts of it, Lake Macquarie High School for parts of it as well. This year, we've got an arrangement with Toronto Public School. So that's going to be our first choice if we need to shut down the exams at Toronto High School and we need to move to an alternative venue. Like the key point around that part is we will be emailing you, we will be contacting you, and you need to follow those directions. Please don't listen to your mate who says, hey, I think we've got to go to Toronto Public School today. If there's no email from the school with my name on it, there's no post on the Toronto High School Facebook page that the exams are still on at Toronto High School. Once again, in our planning, we've got that all mapped out for you guys on where you need to go, where you need to be, even down to the special provisions of the rooms at Toronto Public School, if we need that alternative venue, where you need to go. And look, we also have an alternative to the alternative if we need to. So if something happens while at Toronto Public School, or for some reason they happen to have to go into quarantine, to lockdown as well, they need to be shut down due to COVID. And look, there is that chance because, of course, Toronto Public School feeds into Toronto High School, so we do share families, of course, across the groups. So there is a chance there that may happen or may just happen independently anyway. If that's the case, we do have a third venue for smaller cohorts of less than 20. We're back over to Lake Macquarie High School as another fallback. But once again, we will be communicating that to you very, very clearly. But I do ask, just as a matter of practice, that when you wake up in the morning, first thing you need to do is check your emails from the school, check the Toronto High School Facebook page. Before, if you've got an afternoon exam, if you've got a PM exam, prior to leaving home, check your emails, check the Toronto High School Facebook page, because it could be that we don't get a notification till 11 o'clock at night and we have to respond at that point in time. So these people on the screen will be working with me madly from that notice onwards to be getting out all that information and all that organisation so we can keep the HSC running for our Year 12 2021 cohort. So I can't stress enough, check your emails before you leave to come to the exam, check Toronto High School Facebook. The mums and dads are also going to be emailing you as well based on the email contacts that we've got there at the school. There's a bit of a picture, nice little picture. Thank you. I think Mrs. Collins put that together around the Toronto High School Student Handbook, COVID Safe HSC, that you will receive. That's going to go out via email. After this, we'll be publishing this tomorrow out there. All the information that you need, like I said, much more detailed than what I'm giving you here tonight. A few things you need to know about the HSC. So this is sort of like the nuts and bolts as well on when you're arriving and what's happening when you get here. So for the first exam, you need to be at the school, outside the hall, 30 minutes prior to your first exam. And that's because there's a few little things we need to work through, the screening, a range of things. And just to get you used to that process, we want to make sure that there's plenty of time. Please, please, please don't be one of those students where it's 5 minutes before the exam and I'm putting a call through to the office to say, go ring Will Angel again to get him here on time. Don't be one of those students. Get there half an hour before your first exam. Every other exam after that, 20 minutes prior to the exam, we ask you to be there. That gives us time to do the whole screening process, to get you into the hall, to get you settled, to do the hygiene stuff that needs to happen, for you to sign the forms that you need to sign, and then for us to go into hand over to the presiding officer to take you through the examination guidelines. I've already mentioned about only coming in through those Field Street gates there at the MPC. Disabilities up there, and there you go. Explicit advice from Mr. McConville. So there'll be, like I said, emails coming out, messages up on Facebook with my name sitting there. So you know that's exactly what you need to do. Wear a mask, I've already mentioned a number of times. I can't stress that enough. We will have spare masks at the school for those who might forget. When you're gathering prior to the exam, we do ask that you say separated, do the 1.5 metres, and we're also setting the hall up to meet those guidelines as well. And I mentioned already, we're going to have all those things there for you to sanitise your hands upon entry and exit of the hall. Cleaning prior, even though we'll already have the cleaners come through, it's your responsibility to also look after your own health. And that's why we're making it the cleaning products available for you, both before and after, to wipe down the desk, even though the cleaners will be coming through prior to each exam. But I do ask that you do take responsibility for your own health. And this is a big one. And if you're feeling sick, whether it be the COVID symptoms or not, you need to make sure you tell the presiding officer, because there's a whole range of processes then that kick into play depending on what the issue is. If it's COVID-like symptoms, the presiding officer will actually call upon one of the senior executive members to make their way up to the hall to make a decision around what needs to occur, about whether you will be remaining in that exam or if you need to make your way home and get yourself a COVID test. But we'll be discussing that on that individual basis as that occurs. And bring your own gear. Go blue in the face some years around reminding kids, yes, bring your own gear, bring your calculators. Don't forget any of those things for the exams. Now, a little bit of a change from what you may have been used to in regards to attending school, where Everything has been around. If you have COVID-like or flu-like symptoms, don't come to school. That's been the messaging for 18 months now. For the HSC, the messaging is if you or someone from your household, and that's going to be part of the screening questions that we ask you as well. And once again, if you are unsure, you wake up in the morning and mum's got a cough and not feeling well and you're not sure what to do, pick up your student COVID HSC handbook, ring one of the numbers on that page 1 or 2, myself or one of the deputy principals, and just ask. And we're going to be there to answer all of your questions. But even if there's the mild flu-like symptoms, because although this is a stressful time for you and you want to do your exams, even if it's only mild flu-like symptoms, if you come to school, you will actually put everybody else in that exam hall or in those special provision spaces at risk of their HSC as well, not being able to turn up to do their exams. I shouldn't say at risk of the HSC, because we've got processes to make sure you will get your HSC through illness and misadventure processes. But please, consider others as well. And our take is it's much better for us to be safe around this rather than go, oh, my decision-making around it, if I start going, oh, I'm not quite sure, the answer will be no, don't come. Stay there and we'll work your way through the process that you need to follow around illness and misadventure in order to justify you missing that exam. You will be asked to sign off a declaration around you and your household members not having the flu-like symptoms, not awaiting any COVID-19 test results, all those things you can see on the screen. If you or someone you live with have been in contact with someone testing positive to COVID-19, you or someone you live with been instructed by New South Wales Health to self-isolate, or if you or someone you live with has been with a venue of concern. Once again, if you are in that position, don't worry. You've got the numbers to ring. We've done all this before. I've lost count over the years. It's my 14th year as principal running HSCs. I've lost count the number of illness and misadventure appeals that I've lodged to NESA over the years, including last year in COVID times. This is what your health declaration is going to look like at school that you're going to be signing for. And it's essentially those points that I was going through there on the previous slide, because we're going to be keeping all of these declarations as well as part of the process around being COVID safe and to make you aware of your responsibilities as well. Okay, illness misadventure, because this is the thing that most people probably don't fully understand the process around. Once again, I'm going to keep repeating, don't worry. We've done these before. We know how it works, and we will step you through it from woe to go, from handing you the application or emailing you the application to collecting the application back to us completing the sections that we need to complete and then submitting it to NESA and keeping you informed about that. It's a whole online process these days. It's not a paperwork process for us at our end anymore. But most importantly, if you miss an exam, don't wait 2 or 3 days to get in contact with us. You need to be in contact with us on the day of the exam. You need to be in contact with us prior to the exam to say, hey, Mrs. Collins, I'm actually not feeling well. I've got flu-like symptoms. It's my legal studies exam. What do I do? And Mrs. Collins will say, stay at home, get a COVID test. And then we're going to walk you through the illness misadventure. And then we'll talk to you about when you can make it back to school, when you've got that negative test result cleared, ready to come back to do your next exam. So we will talk you through all of that. Look, part of the illness misadventure process is a number of sections to fill out depending on what the issue is. But if we're focusing on COVID and flu-like symptoms, there's a particular section there around medical, and we do need as much evidence as we can collect to support your claim about the flu-like symptoms. So by going and getting a COVID test, by going to the doctor, by letting us know, by us completing paperwork, that will be enough for us to put in that application. And we've got some scenarios coming up, and the deputy principals are going to talk through them, and we'll explore that a little bit further at that point as well. And of course, I should cover at this point, if something happens to you that's not COVID related, what's one I had last year, or well, a few years ago maybe, a student driving to school had a car accident the morning of. What do I do in that case? Because that's actually not one of the scenarios we've got coming up. Same thing, ring, get on the phone, ring. If you don't happen to have the student booklet with you in the car while driving, might be a great idea to save all those numbers on your phone. Give us a call or phone the school, Toronto High School landline. Let us know what's happened, and once again, we will guide you through the process. It's pretty much the same. We do require documentation, so around that, we'd require an accident report, a police report, any witness statements that could be made or gathered around the area, and then of course we make a statement as a school as well to support your misadventure on that one, because that's not an illness, that would be a misadventure. So that's just sort of covering up both sides. We have been quite focused on illness and COVID, as you'd probably understand. Your HSC timetable. So for our accelerated students from last year, this would look very familiar to you. This is exactly the process we followed last year, where for each and every exam, you got exactly this alternative venue that you would need to attend if we had to shut the exams down at Toronto High School. So all the information's there in your package, your timetable's there, where you need to go if there's an issue, and same for our students who are receiving disabilities provisions as well. It's going to be all there listed for you. That gives you an idea, yep, exactly what it's looking like. I'm meant to be going to the MPC. Oh, Mr. McConville has emailed out to say we can't come to Toronto High School. We need to go to Toronto Public School, and we're going to have detailed information there about where you need to enter the school. Or disability provisions. Oh, I can't go to Toronto High School. I've got to go to Toronto Public School, and we're going to be mapping out that as well on where you need to go and the rooms for each individual exam. So there's no confusion about where you need to go. Scenarios. Here we go. I'm going to hand over to the deputies. So, Christy, Mrs. Collins, look, you're the deputy for Year 12 this year. What a great year to be the Year 12 deputy in a COVID year with all these changes and challenges that the students have faced, but also there's been quite a few challenges for us as a school to work around and develop all of these processes in line with NESA and Department of Education guidelines. But look, I'm a student. I'm ringing you this morning because I've got flu-like symptoms. What do I do?
Yeah, look, first of all, Mark, you're not going to attend that exam. Okay, you've got to get in contact with maybe me, maybe one of the other deputies. If you haven't got our numbers and can't access that handbook, are you going to ring the front office? Okay, and somehow pass on the message that you're not attending that exam. Okay, you do need to get a test, and you will not be able to attend any future exams until you not only have that negative test result that you can provide evidence of, but you need to be symptom-free. If you're in a position, Mark, where you've been instructed by New South Wales Health to self-isolate, that might be a period of days. And look, you may be, Mark, missing a number of exams, okay? But that's fine, because we're going to complete an illness misadventure application for each of those missed exams. And your COVID-19 negative will form part of the evidence that you're going to be asked to produce as part of that illness misadventure application. And look, and I know Lauren Anderson, Miss Anderson's addressing it in the chat there. You can access telehealth as well to get that further evidence from a GP. Because again, we do need, or pardon me, NESA needs more than just an SMS COVID negative as evidence that you haven't attended that exam. It's probably pertinent to mention here that, look, we've been dealing now with COVID for, quite a while. And we have processes that exist in the school. For example, something like hay fever presents as mild flu-like symptoms. In my family, we suffer from it quite a lot, but I have I have a medical clearance from my GP that states sniffy nose, runny eyes, that type of thing. Not COVID, but it's hay fever. And students that are at our school that find themselves in a similar situation, we have a process where that documentation can be presented to the school to otherwise explain what would be flu-like symptoms. This is extrapolated further in the student handbook, but there is a process that we are continuing to follow for HSC students. So if you find yourself with an illness that has been something that you've experienced for a long time that presents as flu-like symptoms, that's something additional that you can provide to the school prior to the 5th. Okay, so prior to the week that we start those HSC exams. So yeah, I think that's it, Mark.
No, thanks, Christy. And actually, yeah, that was great explanation. That's something we did need to highlight for those of you who are presenting with hay fever and the like, around making sure you're getting that doctor's certificate in for us. We've had that process at Toronto High School since the start of COVID, so you should be familiar with it for those of you who suffer, but need to make sure we have that documentation so we can get you into the hall. Otherwise, you'll find yourself potentially in a position of sitting there in the hall presenting flu-like symptoms. The presiding officer will call on one of the senior executives to come across. You'll tell us it's hay fever. I'll ask for the medical clearance around that. And if you can't provide that, you'll be going home to get a COVID test. So make sure you get onto that. And another thing, it was remiss of me at the very beginning, I didn't say, but picked up when Christy mentioned about Lauren's responding to questions in the chat, which I'm not looking at. I don't get distracted while I'm presenting. I can't do too many things at once. But yeah, any questions, put them in the chat, and the deputies know exactly what's coming up on the PowerPoint as well. So maybe some of those questions will be covered as we work our way through. And if not, we are going to, at the very end, ask for questions. So the only way to ask questions tonight is to pop it into the chat. And we will endeavour to respond to all the questions that you have. And if there's something there tonight that we can't respond to, we'll make sure we get back out and respond to you, and or if need be, make as part of our procedures in the documents that we have as well.
Mark, before we move to the next scenario, I might just take the opportunity to speak to maybe a slight alteration to what this scenario presents as. Yep. Because we are asking if you or someone in your household presents as flu-like symptoms. The process is the same. Yep. Again, it appears in the student handbook as an additional scenario, but if someone in your household has flu-like symptoms, don't attend, get in contact, get a test yourself. Yep. And you won't be returning until you can provide that negative test. So,
thanks, Christy.
No worries.
Speaking of Lauren, Mrs. Anderson.
Hello, everyone. Quick little apology from me. Hopefully, you didn't catch too many of our fun and games at the start, adding filters and whatnot, and having some fun and games before it started. So I'm Lauren Anderson. I'm the Deputy Principal for Year 8 and Year 11. So some of my Year 11 students are sitting the HSC as accelerated students.
Yeah, so Lauren, I was going to say, I've woken up this morning and I've got an email from Mr. McConville saying the school's closed.
Goodness. Well, that's the first thing. In what you've just said there, you've received an email from Mr. McConville. So the absolute first thing that you need to do is make sure that the information that you're receiving is from trusted Toronto High School official sources. So we're obviously anticipating that once information's out there, it's going to spread like wildfire. However, you need to make sure that whatever information you are reading is from, for example, the Toronto High School Facebook page, or students will be emailed directly with specific advice as to what's happening. So if that was the case, in the meantime, if you were to receive any directorates or instructions from New South Wales Health, you need to make sure that you are following those directorates. And we have done so much planning to try and prevent that from actually happening. However, if worst comes to worst and we are closed due to a positive case, We've planned down, like Mark has already mentioned earlier, that we have alternate venues which are highlighted on your HSC timetable. So you do have obviously the public HSC timetable, which you can just Google, but the timetable that is in the specific Toronto High School student HSC Safe booklet has the alternate venues specific to our school. So if, for example, one of those alternate venues was also to be shut down, and there is a likelihood that that could happen, particularly if we've got siblings between, local high schools and primary schools, you need to make sure that you are following the venue that we have communicated to you explicitly. Alternatively, if New South Wales Health was to still cite a positive case at our school and we were to remain open, if they deemed that that person or staff member, student, whoever it is, didn't have any close contacts at our school, New South Wales Health could clear us to continue with HSC and the exams would proceed as usual. And it's really important to know and to remember that written HSC exams will not be held online or rescheduled. So we can't just say, okay, if exam XYZ's been cancelled due to the school shutting down from COVID and the alternate venues have also been shut down, you won't get another opportunity to sit that test or that exam rather. What will follow is the misadventure and illness procedures, and we will do that for the whole of the exams that have been impacted for all students.
Beautiful, thanks, Lauren. And yeah, probably something to stress as well. You mentioned that we've got to take on the advice from New South Wales Health. So this was very careful for you to check your emails and check the Toronto High School Facebook page and make sure you read what we are posting up, because we may actually find ourselves in a position where the school gets shut down. So Toronto High School will be shut tomorrow for students in year 7 to 11, but the HSC will continue at Toronto High School. So I just want to be clear, you need to make sure you're reading the posts and the emails. We will let you know exactly where you need to be. Don't just assume because you hear that there's a shutdown happening that that's exactly what will be happening. And I also, if you hear things in the community, I actually cannot post anything or inform anybody until I've followed a series of steps and processes involving New South Wales Health and the Department of Education. And I then actually cannot communicate either until I'm provided with that advice from New South Wales Health on the next steps to make. So even if you're a student sitting there going, no, I sat next to Mr. Paul Champion in that exam and I know he got COVID. I heard him say he's got COVID. So I've definitely got COVID and we've all got COVID. It's just not going to happen where the exams aren't going to happen. No, and if I get hit with 1,000 emails and phone calls, I actually can't comment or say anything until health gives me the clearance. So I'll be able to inform the school community as soon as I am able to. Until you hear something, put it down to just, rumours. Speaking of Mr. Paul Champion, he doesn't have COVID, or at least I hope you don't, Paul. Paul's our third deputy principal. And Paul, you might not have COVID, but you know what? I have. I've tested positive to COVID. What do I do?
Thanks, Mark. And no, certainly I do not have COVID, but I've got the COVID scenario. So look, thanks, Mark, and thanks to our attendees, our parents, carers and students for attending this evening so we can run through some of the information needed. So if you've tested positive to COVID in the lead up to or during the exam period, the first thing you need to do is continue to follow the health advice you've been provided, which will be to self-isolate. That's really, really key. You would have received the positive result, therefore you engaged with the medical practitioner and New South Wales Health would have directed you to self-isolate. That means you cannot, under any circumstances, attend the exam venue. That's really key. Until your positive COVID result has been deemed cleared and you're symptom-free, you will not be able to attend the exam. So that's going to have a major impact on you personally. And that's where the special provisions that we've spoken about this evening come into play. So once you have tested positive, You then need to make contact with the school, inform the school, and we'll support you through the process to make sure that you're well supported in your HSC. The main focus for you at that time is going to be on your health. The HSC and the provisions around special provisions will make sure that you're still eligible for your HSC, and we'll go through the support needed. Both Miss Anderson and Miss Collins have already mentioned about the fact that we will need documentation, and that will be coming from a GP. Miss Anderson's mentioned in the chat bar, it might be through the telehealth service, but if you've been tested positive, you'll probably be in clear consultation with health practitioners, and they'll advise you to self-isolate. Contact the school, let us know. We start the process of making sure you're well supported and you can focus on your health and recovering. Thanks, Mark. Thanks,
Paul. Yeah, and if you tested positive, you do get a medical clearance, and we require that for you to be back on the school site. That's a pretty important one. Look, they're just some of the scenarios we thought we'd present tonight. There's a few more there in the handbook when that's published, and I said a bit more detail there for people to follow through on. Look, some I guess additional news as well around what are we doing in terms of supporting Year 12 up to the HSC. Look, first of all, there wasn't great clarity from the Department of Education as to when Year 12 were going to be finishing school. So it looked like for quite a while that Year 12 was still going to be coming back into Term 4. And then there was an announcement by the Department of Education that your last day was officially the last day of Term 3. Then over the holidays, we've been faced with the staged return to school and the planning around that. And as part of that, I've got the ability to bring back some small groups and study bubbles. And I should say as well, sorry, over the course Term 3, the last few weeks, as a school, we were able to support targeted classes. And those classes were the ones that had a practical base that needed a body of work to be completed and submitted. Some of our extension classes or some other classes that we deemed just were going to benefit from some additional time face to face within the guidelines that we could provide. We could only have groups of up to 10 at Toronto High School over that period of time. I think it was the second last day of the holidays, they announced study bubbles. That was a new one for us. We had no warning in regards to study bubbles. The issue we're juggling as well at the high school, as would every school be, and that's the vaccinations of staff members. To be on site at the moment, staff need to have a double vaccination, and we've been tracking and monitoring that at Toronto High School since last term. So we've been doing a lot of HR planning, staff planning in the background there to know exactly who we have available at different times. So the support for Year 12 moving forward. Oh, sorry, and I should also point out, we sent the survey out, the Year 12 survey out last term, where we were seeking advice from Year 12 as to what they wanted this to look like in the lead up to the HSC. And look, there's mixed results from students. But what we heard very, very clearly is at some point they wanted to re-engage, but they also didn't want to spend the whole time locked in a regular timetable, forced to come to school in the lead up to the HSC. So we've come up with a nice mixture of support. So first of all, HSC students can access their Year 12 teacher in their usual period. So in their usual lesson, if you had Mr. Champion there, period 3 of a Monday for HSC Geography, you can still make contact with him and seek his support at that point in time. The study bubbles that we have in place at the moment as well, and all this information was provided in my HSC update letter that went directly to Year 12 students, the accelerated students, and to families. The study bubble as well, that was a strategy that was, like I mentioned, came to us quite quickly. I think it might have been over the long weekend, we found out about that. Our response around that, because we can't actually guarantee the availability of staff to take study bubbles in particular areas, as per my letter that I published, study bubbles are self-directed by the students, and if students want to create a study bubble with friends, they're more than welcome then to contact the school, and we organise it from that point. The study bubbles have particular guidelines as well, like being outside and a range of things. And I do know that we have had students contact the school, and I do know for certain we've got a study bubble happening in the next day or two with some students who have taken on that opportunity. The big one, however, is our masterclass concept, and that's something that came through quite strongly on our survey. And I did meet with the student leadership team there on 2 occasions in the end of term 3. And the masterclass concept was one we thought was a great way for us to re-engage with Year 12, to re-motivate them and to re-energise them in the lead up to the HSC. So the masterclasses have been published as well for students. That's gone out to you as part of that email. I've had that up. Encourage all students to attend. The very first one on Monday, I will be taking some of your time to welcome you back and to run through a little bit of this information as well for everyone, to cover it for those people who are not in attendance tonight, just some of those processes. Otherwise, we have the masterclasses mapped out for you to attend. I've asked the staff to not just focus on question rehearsal for the HSC and revision, but also to focus on re-engaging with you and re-energising with you as well. Really aware that this has been a drawn out process for Year 12, and we want to use this as a bit of a, almost a shake up, get out of the house, get to school. This is what the hall looks like. This is what the school looks like. This is what your friends look like. This is what your teachers look like. And let's get you motivated again, ready. So it's going to be the last opportunity that your teachers have to support you face to face leading into the HSC with your class as a cohort. So please take on that opportunity. Staff are putting in a lot of time, work and effort at the moment to develop those masterclasses to make them extremely effective for you and to support you leading into the HSC. After next week, after the masterclass sessions, we revert back to, if you want to contact your HSC teacher, they are available once again in the period in which you would have had them in class. And look, we've strategically done that based on feedback from students. Sorry, my voice is going because at the moment in my job, I'm doing this from about 7 o'clock in the morning and just talking non-stop. But from 7 o'clock, in the morning, I'm talking. But for students, the 2 weeks is quite strategic to give you the time. That was part of the feedback we received with the surveys. Students wanted the time. They didn't want to be directed to come to school to do lessons. They wanted the time to spend studying. So we provided that with the 2 weeks, but also providing that opportunity to Zoom your staff, your teacher. That's my preference, to Zoom your teacher for support, because of my next point is the fact that we've put this on 2 weeks prior to the HSC has been a strategy as well. Because let's say there happens to be, over the course of our masterclasses, let's just say there happens to be a positive COVID case out of our Year 12 cohort. By holding our masterclasses next week, we're providing everyone in that group the opportunity to go through the isolation, to go through that process and still be ready for the HSC. So that's part of our thinking around it. And that's why I'm saying after the masterclasses, the 2 weeks leading up to the HSC, you're still welcome to come to school. But by coming to school to meet with your teacher, you are increasing your risk of potentially being caught up in a COVID situation. So I will stress that as well next Monday to students, but that support's there and available as well. Look, we've already moved your formal. Mrs. Little, I've lost count. Mrs. Little, the number of times you moved it, 2, 3 times. She's done a wonderful job to make that happen. And of course, once we reach that point, we're still going to be subject to whatever the restrictions are out there in the wider community and with the venue. So as we get closer, we'll actually outline what that looks like, because there's no point saying it now, because you see how much things change just in a matter of days. And graduation. Graduation is the big one. Look, originally, we had graduation booked in for about 2 weeks on a Thursday, and we settled on that date. But now with the changes that we're seeing, and the Department of Education has now changed some guidelines around graduation, pointing out that the Department of Education does not want any graduation ceremonies to be taking place during the HSC or before the HSC. So we're going to be working on a new date. And once again, for the mums and dads out there, it's a very special occasion and you want to attend. And we're going to work it so hopefully that we're going to be able to have, parents in attendance. If not, like we did last year, we'll be organising that via Zoom. Not ideal, but we'll do what we can based on the restrictions when we get there. And I know what a special occasion it is. I've had both, my daughters go through Toronto High School and go through the graduation process, which is, quite special, not just as the principal, but, as a dad. So I know that mums and dads, you definitely want to get to the graduation event. Question. Now, this is where I'm going to throw also to the deputies, because I haven't been keeping track of the chats. So are there things coming up in the chats that we need to address?
Yeah, thanks, Mark. Yeah, we've been addressing the questions as they've been raised. So there's been a question on the type of face mask, how you might access a doctor's if you've been asked to isolate, those different things. So we've addressed those questions as they've been coming up. Just for further information on the masterclasses, yep, so those masterclasses will begin next Monday. We do have opportunities for Mark to address all of the Year 12s, and certainly it'll be an information session for those Year 12s who haven't found themselves able to attend this evening. So they have all of this information as well, and we're all on the same page as we prepare to undertake a COVID-safe HSC. Just talking about those masterclasses. So yeah, look, that they will be based on a student timetable. So I know after Mr. McConville addresses Year 12, we jump straight into English. So we have masterclasses for all of the English courses. And then it does go. So it is really important that you are referring to that timetable. That timetable also tells you what fun outfit you might be able to wear.
Yeah, good point. Sorry, I didn't raise that at all with the masterclasses. You're not wearing your school uniform. So if you refer back to the email that I sent out to all of Year 12 and to the parents that came out from the school where we outlined, that was in my letter, the HSC update around the masterclasses. No uniform, no school uniform. It's the themes. We're trying to find fun things for you guys to do over the course of that week as well. And we'll talk to you about that on Monday. But as usual, make sure it is appropriate, even though it's fun and dressing up. But yeah, getting to the spirit. And I know Mrs. Little has been encouraging staff to do the same. I'm thinking of doing something crazy actually, and like maybe taking my tie off to get into the spirit of things. So yeah, thanks, Christy. I forgot to mention around the themes over the course of the masterclass days as well. Are there any other questions there that need responding to? No. Well, look, thank you very much for your time. For the mums and dads that might be on board here tonight, we are running another webinar. That's going to be next Thursday night at 6 p.m. And that's going to be addressing the needs of Year 7 to Year 11. And when I say Year 11, I mean our students will be sitting in the HSC in 2022. There's confusion even with staff at times around when we're talking Year 12. Is that the Year 12s going? The Year 12s we now got teaching HSC. What do we? Yeah. Until the end of the year, I think we'll just be referring to our Year 12s that we've got now doing the HSC's Year 12 and our Year 11s who have now started doing Year 12 work as Year 11s. Hope that didn't confuse you. But we do have that webinar next week, 6 o'clock, where we will be running through all the operational setups at Toronto High School, what our COVID-safe practices are going to look like. There are a number of changes that will be taking place at the school, down to trying to reduce the amount of mingling with students. So we've got different playground areas set up, different processes around canteen, all pre-ordering. We've got changing of roll calls. We can't have the students all meeting outside. So a whole range of things that are changing times for the first few lessons of the day to create a bit more time at recess, lines, a whole range of things that are happening at the school. So that's an important one to get to as well, and we'll be advertising that on Facebook as well. For our Year 12s, I'm looking forward to seeing you back at school on Monday. I'm pretty excited to meet some students face to face. We have had a small group of students coming in each and every day as part of essential workers, but that's typically between 10 and 12 students really each and every day at the school. Excited to see Year 12 back, excited to see what you're going to be wearing for your themes. And look, I'm really excited and hoping that this is really going to re-engage and get you excited and ready for the HSC. But yeah, and I know your teachers are really excited too. Yeah, we had an executive meeting this afternoon, and I know people like Mrs. Fotheringham. She was absolutely pumped and excited. Can't wait of getting the kids back on deck as well. So looking forward to seeing you all from next week. And as usual, if there's any questions, any concerns, get in contact with us. We will be doing an email out of that booklet, so that will all be there for you to refer to. I'll make sure that we also include the masterclass. I might include that letter again that I sent out, masterclass, and the details around that, so you're familiar. And also make sure any of your friends that aren't online here tonight, get on, do the social media stuff with them as well, and tell them, make sure you get to Toronto High School on Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday. Okay, guys, thank you very much for your attendance tonight. Ramus Insurgite. Bye.